agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
And I will, no. I forgot.
So we're okay. We're okay.
I will,
I move to approve.
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Roll call, please.
President Latu,
Aye.
Vice President Shabal Maheen,
Aye.
Trustee Alexander,
Aye.
Trustee Bloom.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. So before we go into closed session, if there's anyone that wishes to address the board on any matters that we will be discussing during closed sessions, you may do so at this time.
There's nobody there.
As I see none, we will move into closed session. We will be back at 7:20. I'll see you on the other side.
Solomon, do you mind bringing in Melee from the attendees list?
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back. We will open, we will return from closed session to open session at 7:16 p.m. Do we have everyone? Let's wait a minute before we continue.
Yeah, Tim is connected but not visible. There she is.
I believe we need Miss Jenny. Or is she? Oh, there she is.
Perfect. So I will report back on actions taken during closed session. So for 3B1, there was discussion and action was taken. For 3C, there was discussion and no action was taken. So now we will move on to item.
I'm sorry, President Melee, I think we missed 3A as action and 3B was discussion.
Yes. So yes, so 3A1, there was discussion and action. 3B, there was discussion. And 3C, there was discussion as well. So now we will move on to item number 5, which is from the floor. So at this time, if you wish to, I see a panelist. If you wish to address the board on any matter that isn't pertaining to anything agendized in this, agendized today, this is your time to do so. I also would like to remind everyone that we do have Spanish translation, and you may use that function by using the interpretation button at the bottom. So as I see no hands, we will move on to item number 6, which is the consent agenda. Do we have any questions, comments? If none, I will entertain a motion.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Latu,
Aye.
Vice President Shibomeheen,
Aye.
Trustee Alexander,
Aye.
Trustee Bloom.
Aye.
And the motion carries 4-0. So now we will move on to item number 7, which is from the superintendent's office. And I will pass this to Superintendent Sidoria.
Thank you, President Latu. We will be providing an update on our strategic plan. I'll be sharing my screen. President Latu, can you give me a thumbs up if you see the title page of the deck? Okay, great.
Oh, really quick before we continue, just to go back to item number 3A, there was a vote that was taken, there was action that was taken, and the vote was 4-0 with none opposing. Continue, sorry.
Yeah, not a problem. Well, great. This will be a joint presentation with our cabinet team. We'll be providing some context and reflecting on what we've been able to come through over this past year. We are coming towards the end of our school year with only 4.5 more weeks of school left. We will then be providing an update on the progress that we've made on our strategic plan, along with some goals and priorities, along with initiatives that we have developed with the help of our pandemic response consultant. Actually, it should be like a strategic pandemic recovery consultant as we're moving through this pandemic. And the staff has been working very hard. And so each cabinet member whose own specific initiatives will be sharing out about the work that we've been doing. And then we'll have an opportunity for discussion at the end. And if there's questions, I'm wondering, Trustee Latu, if we would like to ask the questions during the presentation. It is quite long, so we probably just want to get direction from you of how to handle that.
Yeah, if we want to section it out, but if the questions do take up a bit of time, I will continue to push them along until the end. But if there is sections that you would like to pause, that's fine.
Okay, great. All righty, so our strategic priorities were adapted before COVID, but the team and we believe that the priorities are still relevant. There are 6 strategic priorities: engage students with relevant, rigorous, and standards-aligned instruction, supports, and materials, provide safe, joyful, and productive learning environments with the proper social emotional supports, recruit and retain highly effective and diverse team members, partner with families in the community to support the whole child, manage people, time, and budget responsibly, equitably, and strategically in service of students, and work collaboratively and share responsibility for our core values. As you can imagine, we've had to pivot and tackle multiple system level challenges over the past year, as no one had anticipated a global pandemic. And none of these obviously were anticipated in our strategic plan. So literally, I still remember the date, March 13th, 2020, we did a full pivot to full distance learning. And in the midst of that, we immediately addressed student needs, family non-academic needs like technology, food, and the mental health supports that were needed. Then over the summer, we were planning for hybrid, thinking that we were coming back onto our campuses. And because of the conditions at the time, we then flipped to, again, what we were doing in the spring to full distance learning, plus the learning hubs. Fall 2020, which was just a few months ago, we continue with distance learning, and amidst trying to merge the 2 new schools that we are putting together at Belhaven Elementary and Castaño School of the Arts. And then, of course, now as we are approaching the fall of 2021, we are spending a lot of time rethinking how we want to do school next year. We are proud of our progress despite going through this pandemic, and we have identified several accomplishments, and we want to highlight a few here before we go more in depth in the milestones that we were able to accomplish. So we've identified and prepared to roll out a new social emotional learning curriculum ahead of schedule. We clearly have improved upon our skills in terms of the tools necessary to deliver distance learning. And we are proud to have significantly increased communication with our families. And I know we want to continue with some strategies that we've been implementing during this time. We recategorized and, in a sense, built a new budget for 21-22, and proud that we are going to be more transparent and be able to have a multi-year budgeting system that's sustainable, and that's definitely aligned to our core values. There is a whole lot that you will see in this presentation. What I do want to emphasize is that we want to focus on making sure that we know our students well. We become masters of the content and instructional strategies that will support student learning. And we want to be able to recruit and retain great staff by ensuring that we compensate them appropriately. This is all to say, like, if we think about a triangle where you have the teacher, the student, and the content, and that's known for many as the instructional core, we want to make sure we know our students very well, their social emotional needs, connecting them to the cultural context, right? Really understanding our content and our material. And then for our teachers, building professional development, training our teachers. The work between the three things is very important. We really want our teachers to know our students well. We want our teachers to know our content, the material, so that we can connect and make relevant the information we want students to learn. And the students see themselves in what they are learning and can be change agents in their community. That instructional core is the foundation of the work we want to do moving into 21-22. Starting with our strategic priority 1, our curriculum and instruction director, Lara Berenin, will be sharing about, along with our director of special ed, how we want to engage students with relevant, rigorous, standards-aligned instruction supports and materials. There are 4 initiatives under this strategic priority, and you can take a look here. I won't read through them. We'll be going more in depth as our directors present. So we'll start with 1.1 math, and our director of C&I, Lara Berenin, will begin.
Thank you, Gina. So initiative 1.1 is around math, and it is to deepen implementation of rigorous standards-aligned math instruction with an initial focus on strengthening curriculum, lesson planning, vertical alignment, and language development. So this year, we really focused on supporting a team of K-5 math teacher leaders who engaged in an after-school PD series with our math coach, also engaged in math coaching and support with lessons, instruction, and reflection. And we're really excited to build on the work of this team moving forward. Our 6-8 math team has also been meeting regularly, and we're working to support our math leaders in 6-8 as well. So looking ahead to next year, we want to further work towards and solidify our mathematics learning vision for the district. And we've started that work this spring with our instructional leaders. So we'll continue into next year. We'll build on and expand our math teacher leader cohorts, and we'll look to providing even more widespread or wider scope professional development the following school year. Initiative 1.2 is around English language arts, and it is to deepen implementation of rigorous standards-aligned ELA instruction with an initial focus on strengthening curriculum, lesson planning, and language development, so parallel to math. And here it's really important to note that it's not just English language arts that we are working on, but also English language development. So thinking about the many students that we have with varying backgrounds who are learning English and how we support them to do so. So this year, principals worked on setting literacy goals. So thinking about, what data are we able to collect on about our students' literacy learning within our pandemic context, and what are the goals that we are aiming towards for student learning this year. We also supported teachers to kind of rethink and replan their literacy curriculum and other subject areas too, of course, for virtual instruction. So that was a really big piece this year. Our 6-8 team is doing a lot of work right now to plan for an English language arts curriculum pilot for the 2021-2022 school year. And so right now they're reviewing the available curriculum and deciding on the criteria with which they can review curricula and select one in the future. Next year, teachers will pilot the different choices, so try them out teaching lessons and units in the classroom, and then come together to evaluate them and select the best one for implementation the following year. So next year, we're going to continue working on our shared vision around K-8 English language arts and English language development, including honing in on our balanced literacy practices in K-5, in 6-8, piloting the new curriculum, as I mentioned. And we also, as I've said, want to focus on our English learners. So, using a data review process to monitor how our English learners are doing, both in their language development and across other areas, and also focus on reclassification.
Thank you, Lara. Our Director of Special Ed will address 1.3.
Strategic priority 1.3 is to strengthen a multi-tiered systems of support. The acronym for that is MTSS, process to track and measure student progress and provide targeted interventions through teacher collaboration, and with a particular focus on tier 3 supports for students with special needs. We have an MTSS steering committee, which is comprised of the cabinet team as well as our principals. We have a clear agenda that focuses on data and our instructional core. Our administrative staff understand that multi-tiered systems of support is more than just a meeting. It is a system and a way of thinking about data to improve instruction. This year, due to COVID, we focused on English language arts attendance and engagement. We had hoped to focus on SP 1.2, 1.4, and 2.1 and identify tiered interventions in tier 1, base level that everybody should get, tier 2, more supports that some students may need, and tier 3, supports that a very small portion of our students may need. Next year, our hope is to, with the MTSS committee, cabinet and principals, explore our current assessments and recommend assessment strategies and what the purpose of these assessments are, so we can really use data to inform every single decision we make, both on the social emotional side of things as well as the academic side of things. We want to build our internal skills on how we reflect on data and use that data to really make strong, sound decisions in the best interest of our students. And I think that is all for MTSS.
Thank you, Jen. All right, and Lara will return.
1.4, excuse me, is around professional development. So our goal is to launch an improved data-driven and vertically aligned professional development plan, spanning from teachers to cabinet leaders, with a focus on creating structures for teacher collaboration and developing the content-specific knowledge and skills of all educators in the system. And our goal for this year was around providing a range of K-8 English language arts and English language development training and PD and analyzing the strengths and gaps with those offerings. We were able to do some of that this year. So the K-5 ELA PD that we provided was shifted to focus much more so on distance learning and virtual instruction. And there were several elements intended within that structure that we did not get to implement. So for example, bringing teachers together in the same classroom to observe model instruction and then try out strategies with feedback from peers. So there were elements we were able to do, but it wasn't the same being virtual. We definitely had a lot of opportunity for collaboration this year. And through our LCAP process, we gathered input from stakeholders around PD provided and PD needs moving forward. So for next year, we are refocusing professional development on knowing our students, as Superintendent Sudaria explained, and strengthening our instructional core. So in the vein of creating a vertically aligned PD plan, we want to be clear what learning opportunities are available for teachers, for teacher leaders, for administrators, and the more specific foci under knowing our students include using a social emotional learning curriculum, culturally responsive teaching, building trusting relationships with students. And then within the instructional core, we have quite a bit going on. So continued literacy and English language development, professional development, continued focus on math, as I mentioned. We also have a new TK to 5 science adoption coming on board next year, so teachers will need support with that as well. And in 6-8, looking at new social studies curriculum materials. So there are many things that we are hoping to work on and accomplish here. And as an underlying or foundational piece to all of this, we want to make sure that we're continually reflecting on data to understand student needs and also to reflect on our instruction.
Thank you, Anna. So we added a new initiative here, considering the opportunity gap and achievement that we would need to address in recover from this pandemic. And so we propose that we add 1.5, which is to design and implement additional high impact research-based strategies to accelerate student learning. And the goal here is to invest new funding to make sure that we accelerate the learning of our students and design and implement high impact learning acceleration strategies and assess these strategies' impact and determine whether we want to continue with these strategies in the future. So some of these strategies are expanding or extending the learning day at the elementary schools, which we already have established at the middle school. And obviously, I just want to emphasize too that we have to negotiate with our bargaining unit around this. We want to expand in-person summer school. We want to provide high dosage tutoring. And we have been considering like acceleration academies where we may want to offer instructional time during the time that we typically take breaks. And then we must continue to evaluate our programs to make sure that they are making an impact, and we want to continue allocating these funds to these strategies. We're going to move to strategic priority number 2, where our Director of Student Services, Cindy Chin, will be speaking more about our goals to provide safe, joyful, and productive learning environments with the proper social emotional supports. And so she will address 2.1 and 2.2 here more closely.
Good evening. Strategic Priority 2.1 focuses on establishing a vision of excellence for student culture and codifying strengthened behavior management systems. Due to the pandemic and we not having kids in person for most of the year, we weren't able to implement everything for this original timeline, but there are some things that we have been able to put into place. So we are establishing a committee to really focus on what the vision of our culture and climate should look like for all of our schools and classrooms. Taking in also the feedback from the various surveys that we've done with families and students and staff, to take that input and really kind of set a good foundation for when we come back in person. And then the next slide talks about some of our goals really for the next school year, which really continues on the work that we'll establish with our committee that we've just started, so that we can provide professional development for our staff when they return in August around that shared vision of what we want to see for all of our kids. Because we recognize that, relationships and school is really important for students and for the adults. And it's a place that we want to make sure that everyone feels is joyful and wants to be there. And so we want to lay that foundation to build really strong relationships with everybody. And then 2.2 focuses on our social emotional learning. And as it says there on the slide, that we are ahead of schedule with the San Mateo County Office of Education's grant for the Mental Health Student Services Act grant. We were able to move up the timeline for the curriculum, utilizing the SEL subcommittee for reopening to help select the program that we would use. And we started to implement that in the middle school. They had the digital version of the curriculum early on so that they were able to receive the training and start implementing that weekly. And then for the elementary, teachers have access to it, but we didn't have time to schedule in the official training from Second Step, which will push into the fall. And then, so then for the upcoming school year, really it is making sure that we implement the train the elementary teachers on the program so that they are able to begin with the lessons, and then work with our administrators and staff to make sure that they are actually implementing the curriculum, but also recognizing that it's not just about that standalone time, that we should be focusing on students and their emotions and throughout the day, right? And kind of embed that work so that it isn't just okay, I did it and check off, right? It's really connected to building strong relationships and knowing who our students are.
Thank you, Cindy.
Mhm.
All right, we're moving into strategic priority number 3, where our HR director, Tony Stone, will report about the work we're doing to recruit and retain highly effective and diverse team members.
So this year we have explored compensation and evaluation systems so that we're prepared to propose improvements to our bargaining unit this August. We have implemented our system to celebrate staff. As you know, our bi-monthly celebrations related to our newly adopted core values. Our next celebration will be in June, core value excellence. We are researching certificated staff evaluation systems to propose changes in August. And we have really strengthened our teacher pipeline by improving partnerships with the Alder Graduate School of Education and San Mateo County Office of Education to support our special education recruitment. And then the Marshall Teacher Project will support our single subject teachers at the middle school. And then, of course, our partnership with TFA, also supporting at the middle school. And one of the things we still really want to do is explore marketing best practices. We have been working on analyzing our compensation system, and we've identified funding sources, and we are looking forward to proposing significant increases in August for our staff. And then next year, like I mentioned, we want to prioritize increasing compensation in an effort to recruit and retain our highly qualified staff. So that will include negotiating. And we also are looking forward to making some changes to our evaluation article. And again, that will require us to negotiate with RTA. And again, looking forward to improving our marketing around recruitment.
I do want to say that I might be jumping the gun here, but we do have a connection with a professional graphic designer who would like to do this work around designing our new logo as a passion project. And the best part here is that he was a former student of Ravenswood City School District who now works for Facebook. Yeah, really excited. Thank you, Tony, for that work. All right, so we are moving to strategic priority number 4, where we want to partner with families and the community to support the whole child, and our student service director, Cindy Chin, will also present on the 2 initiatives under the strategic priority, and we'll go more in depth now.
Yeah, in addition to the pandemic really emphasizing the need to build strong relationships with our students, it really taught us that we already knew that it was important to work with our parents, but especially during this time. And so we want to continue our work with our families by maintaining that communication. This school year, we've increased the number of calls that we made with families. We had the family workshops weekly to help address some social emotional needs of family that families might be seeing at home or just wanting to get more information about. And then there's also the monthly opportunity to speak with the superintendent, aside from the regular kind of public meetings here with her open office hours. We also launched Parent Square, which is that 2-way communication system. And we have, most schools and teachers have been using that as a means to kind of update families, particularly around the different Zoom links or the schedules and everything like that. It's also an opportunity for families to have signed up for, you can use it to schedule conferences, send out different forms. So we're really trying to take advantage of communicating with families through Parent Square. We also gathered information from families through the different surveys that we have. So like the California Healthy Kids Survey, and then also the meetings that we used around the LCAP to help create some of our different goals. And then we're looking to start a family engagement committee in the summer so that we can improve on and formalize some of the work that we're doing around families, and continue that work through next school year, and maintain the feedback cycle so that we can keep improving how we work with our families. So again, like it says there, right? Maintaining our touch points with our families, continuing with the family workshops, and then also just really maintaining communication so that we can just keep improving every year with our families. I think our families have been really happy with the way that we've been able to try and reach out this year, and just want to keep doing better and welcoming our families onto our different sites. And then additionally, strategic priority 4 deals not only with families, but also with our community. So we looked at all of our different community partners and identified a potential evaluation tool to make sure that our, what we want and what our partners do are aligned to make sure that we're meeting our mission and our goals. And so then the hope would then be for next year to you really use that with all of our different partners, probably with a subset of our partners, so that we can again make sure that we're aligned, because we want to continue with partners that are going to help us and our kids and community succeed, and want to just make sure we're all on the same page. I think that is it on that.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks.
All right, so we're moving to strategic priority 5, where our CBO, Will Eager, will share a little bit more details of managing people, time, and budget responsibly, equitably, and strategically in service of students.
Good evening, trustees. We've had an exciting year here, and I think we've made some reasonably good progress. On the budget, this was my first year in the district, and I think a lot of what our work here is trying to just reorganize our budget, make sure that things were in the right place, get things moving, as well as building sort of greater understanding across the district, across our community in our budget, through increasing transparency, building a better understanding of sort of what it means to budget, what it means to be a budget owner, as well as sort of giving schools a bit more autonomy than they've had in the past over their specific budget. So we've done more of giving sort of schools budget money to work within. We've also it's been sort of an interesting and exciting year on our revenue side. We really, I think, strengthened our partnership with REF, which has led both to sort of a stronger working relationship, increased alignment around sort of executing on our shared strategic priorities, and also increasing the amount of funding we're seeing from them. That's come at the same time that we've seen significant amounts of stimulus money, which has created sort of unprecedented opportunities for us, and also created just some logistical challenges around how do we actually spend that money strategically? How do we make sure that we're constantly in compliance with all of these different new and exciting funding sources? Well, all of that's been happening sort of on the COO building side of the house. We really spent a lot of the year just understanding the needs of our buildings across the districts. And we understand, I think, now the level of need throughout our facilities in a deeper way. And I think we've made progress working with our principals, stakeholders, community members to think about, what would that look like to really improve our buildings, as well as thinking about how we can use some of our assets more strategically. Specifically, a couple of sites, the district office is one, and the flood site is another, that could be sort of sustainable long-term sources of revenue for us. We've made a bit less progress on the program evaluation piece. I think we're still working on a process to evaluate district programs and services, although I think by giving budget owners a bit more autonomy over their budget, we've seen shifts into, as sort of budget owners make decisions around what they think is working and not working. But I think we certainly have room to grow in that as we do in all these areas. I think we're going to talk about it next slide. So, I think as we think about sort of our 21-22 goals, as mentioned before, we have a really unprecedented opportunity here. And I think the sort of danger with that is all of this one-time money, plus our enrollment funding cliff, plus new investments, plus hopefully raises, as Tony talked about, creates just a massive opportunity for the district, and also sets us up for a bit of danger. It is quite possible that in the next couple of years, we see our revenue decline significantly, right? And how we manage that transition could be a problem down the road. Of course, we're getting a lot of bang for our buck over the next couple of years as well. So, it's very exciting opportunities, but also does set us up, if we're not careful here, we could be in some trouble down the road. So sustainability is kind of the key word for the next year. On the facilities side, we're really thinking about, we're doing a $50 million project, one of the district's biggest ever construction projects. How are we going to do that at the Cesar Chavez Ravenswood Middle School? How are we going to make sure that's done well? And how are we making sure that all of our facilities become excellent over the next few years? And moving back to the finance side, thinking about the budget process, how are we thinking about sort of as our strategic plan evolves, how are we thinking about realigning our spending to that plan? How are we being more inclusive in our budgeting process? I think that's definitely a growth area for us of doing more community engagement around our budgeting process, as well as mentioned previously, really thinking about how we're systematically evaluating our district programs and services in that budgeting process? How are we sort of making sure that we're investing wisely across our different initiatives?
Thank you, Will. So strategic priority 6 is to work collaboratively and share responsibility for our core values. And there'll be some overlap. As you noticed, there was overlap around the evaluation of programs under strategic priority 5 and strategic priority number 4. And then you have recruitment that's going to overlap with, which we'll see here, from strategic priority 3 to strategic priority number 6. So the goal here was to implement differentiated communication plan with stakeholders, update district branding, develop recognition system for staff, students, and families. And so we were able to launch the Parent Square to better engage families. We launched the monthly communication action, community in action virtual meetings with myself once a month. We've launched core values recognition system through the HR department. And we're on track to propose a new district logo and branding to reflect just the work that we're doing, reflect our core values, our mission, and our strategic plan. And we're looking to see how recognition of family and students can take, well, we'll talk about that next, but here it does take place at the school sites during Student of the Month assemblies, school-wide assemblies. But for next year, we definitely want to rebrand Ravenswood. We have a good thing going on, and our image needs to reflect the work that we're doing here that's making a great impact in our community. And so we want to reflect the work that, we're actively engaging families, we're building community, and we're making an impact on students. So our goals for 21-22 and the milestones are to launch a campaign to rebrand Ravenswood, and then develop and implement differentiated strategies to communicate with each of our stakeholders, and continue to work on leveraging the family engagement that we have already in place, and continue developing the two-way collaboration with our families. That is the end of our presentation. Before we answer any questions, I do want to give my sincere appreciation and gratitude to the directors here who've been working very hard amidst the pandemic to work through the strategic plan, and we've made several accomplishments as we share here, and hats off to all of them. And I also want to thank Ann Waterman Roy for helping us synthesize this work to share with you today.
Thank you, Superintendent Sidoria. So now I will open the floor. If anybody from the board has any comments or questions from the presentation that we just had.
Through the chair, I have a question. I think this is for Superintendent Sudaria and perhaps Mr. Eager, not quite sure. But I could have heard incorrectly, so forgive me, but I think I heard Ms. Stone talk about potential salary. First of all, thank you. I'm sorry for not showing my gratitude first. Thank you for all this beautiful work. I echo the superintendent's gratitude to everyone. Cool. Now to the question. I think I heard Ms. Stone mention potential salary raises for staff. And I'm wondering, with what Mr. Eager presented, how do we reconcile salary increases with what he shared about sustainability and the potential for some negative impact around our finances in the next few years?
I'll have Will go ahead and answer this, but we did share a little bit of during our budget study session, some work that we're doing to prepare and anticipating the cliff coming down the line. And so we are trying to do some work around making sure we have staff that match, that's in proportion to the number of students that we have. And there's a lot of work around our facilities as well, but more details, Will, if you can share.
Yeah, I don't know. And probably short answer here is I don't have, we haven't negotiated a deal. There's not a deal that's ready. So I can't to some extent is just speculating on what a deal would look like and how we would pay for it. To Superintendent Zadaria's point, and I think Trustee Alexander made it very clear at the study session that we need to be seriously considering raises. And I think she challenged me pretty explicitly to have a plan in place to do raises in the near term. I don't know if she gave me a specific deadline, but I think it is clear that raises are something that we need to explore. I think we've done a lot of work to lay the foundation to do that this year. I don't know that I'm ready to sort of comment at this point on exactly how we pay for them or exactly what the raises would look like or what a deal with the union would look like. As Ms. Stone mentioned, we haven't begun conversations with the union. Those are expected to begin in August. So I think it's sort of just premature to comment on it too much, other than just to say, I think that is a big fundamental tension that we are facing of we feel the need of urgency here and we really want to do this in a way that also obviously, it really rewards our high performing teachers and does include changes to how we do evaluations, Ms. Stone mentioned, while also making sure that we're doing it in a way that puts the district on sustainable financial footing, not just in the short term, but in 10, 15 years. Right. So we're not setting ourselves up for a time bomb down the road.
For sure. Thank you. And just want to clarify that I'm not questioning the intention and the need for salary raises. I am 100% all in. Just wondering about now those details about how do you do it right in a sustainable way, given what's coming down the pipeline. So yeah.
And we're meeting, we met for maybe an hour and a half yesterday talking about just that, right? Not just what would it look like to give a raise next year, but what does that mean if more of our teachers stay? What does that mean for sort of salary increases in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, right? How are we making sure that we're setting ourselves up for success long term? So I'm certainly very aware of the issue and I share your concerns and excitement around the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Other comments? I will also open the floor to the public as well. If you would like to speak during this time, you can use the hand raise function. For those who are joining a little bit later, there is Spanish translation. And so if you would like to use that, the interpretation button at the bottom.
Through the chair, Daniela had her hand raised, and Daniela, I just promoted you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Daniela. Well, I don't speak that much English. Is there some way that someone can translate to me? Okay.
Yes.
Bueno, mi nombre es Daniela Mendoza. Tengo 2 hijos en la escuela de Belhaven. Apenas soy nueva en el distrito escolar, pero me interesó mucho la parte en donde mencionan que hay una posibilidad de incrementar el salario de los profesores, en lo cual estoy de acuerdo. Alcancé a entender también que quieren llevarlo con cautela debido a que es probable que no alcance el presupuesto. No existe una posibilidad de gestionar algún recurso por parte del Estado para que les den ese aumento tan merecido, porque como madre de kinder y primer grado, reconozco que ha sido una experiencia tan grande la pandemia para todos en la comunidad, en la que realmente el que no aprecie el valor de un profesor, creo que es una persona que no valora el futuro de sus hijos. Es lo que puedo decir.
Thank you, Daniela. David, do you mind interpreting?
Thank you so much. Just as a reminder that the board can't comment on specifics during the time, but we will pass it to the superintendent's office so that they know the direction. I see we have a raised hand from David.
Through the chair, I just want to say we can comment. It's just during the general things that are not on the agenda at the beginning of the agenda. But the discussion like this, we can comment and talk about and even address. So yeah, if it's on the agenda. And
Yes,
this-
corrected.
Sorry.
Hi, David, I see your hand is up.
Yes. Okay. Were you guys good? Okay. I'm not sure if all trustees clicked the English button.
While Daniela was, yes, I did.
I did
And you can give the
halfway
main points.
Yeah, I did halfway through. I didn't realize.
Yes, so if you wish to speak for this item, you may use the hand raise function. If not, if we don't have any other comment, I do have a brief comment that I would like to say. Thank you to the staff. I think one thing I really, really want to highlight is that throughout the last couple of months, we have discussed things during board meetings, during one-on-ones, and this presentation has included a lot of those points. I personally feel that I pressed along, and one of those is finding ways that we can increase salary for our staff, classified and unclassified. And so I just want to say thank you to the staff. Thank you, Superintendent Sudaria, for all your hard work. And I saw a lot of the answers that I've been anticipating for a while. So especially around the social emotional learning, I really like that as well. So unless there's any other comments, we will move on to item number 8, which is Human Resources Department. And I will pass it to Tony.
Thank you. The item before you is a side letter between RTA and Ravenswood to return to in-person instruction. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board has.
I will open the floor for discussion. Do we have any questions or comments related to item 8A? I see none from the board. I will open the floor for the public. I see none. So I will entertain a motion to approve item 8A, the consideration to approve the side letter between the Ravenswood City School District and the Ravenswood Teacher Association.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 8A.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'd like to second that, please.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Latu,
Aye.
Vice President Shibomihit,
Aye.
Trustee Alexander,
Aye.
Trustee Bloom.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0. We will move on to item number 9, which is the Business Department, 9A, the consideration to approve Resolution 2020-2021-21 to lease the flood site. I will pass it to you, Will.
Good evening again, trustees. As you know, we are owners of the flood site over in Menlo Park, just across the highway. Earlier this year, we applied for a state audit a state waiver to have some discretion on how that site is leased. We're moving forward with conversations with the park, with Menlo Park, the city of Menlo Park, as they go by officially, on what that site could look like. This resolution does not bind us to anything other than kicking off the process to lease that site. So it doesn't determine, I don't have answers for you now, if you're wondering exactly what that site will look like, who will take that site, how much money we'll get from the site, all of that is sort of to be determined. This resolution merely authorizes us to begin the process of gathering information from the market as to what people will be interested in building there. Again, we've been working closely with the city of Menlo Park to make sure that we're not, proposing something that's against their interests. But this authorization just kicks off that process. There also is one other part to this resolution, which is similar to the portion of the bond resolution, the bond issuance resolution that we passed a little while ago, which authorizes me and the district staff to identify a broker to work with on this site. There's a whole bunch of district properties that we lease currently. So Brentwood, the 491 O'Connor, many sites that we're leasing to schools that we don't really need a real estate broker for. This is a large property that will not be used as a school. So we're sort of leasing it to somebody who's going to develop something on this site, which is a very different process than what we've done in the past. We tried to go on this with the advice of our facilities subcommittee on it alone. And we sort of quickly found out that we were a little bit in over our heads and we needed some outside experts to help sort of us understand both the city needs, the market needs, and what made the most sense for the site. We've identified a broker that we'd like to work with, JLL. They are one of the sort of largest real estate commercial brokers in the world. I think they're 2 or 3 or 1, depending on the day and the stock market. What this authorizes me to do is negotiate an agreement with them that is most favorable to the district. Now, the reason that we're not bringing you a specific agreement with them today is because I think there's a couple of things that we can do that'll get it below this rate. So I think there's a couple of things that we can do that'll do one of 2 things. One, either lower the amount that we pay as a percentage of the assessed value of the deal, or it'll allow us to sort of push some costs onto the buyer or onto some other third party that basically allows the district to pay less. So I don't have a specific contract with you at the moment, but this sort of authorizes me to embark upon a deal that would exceed no more than 6%. I think I can get it down already to closer to 4, but it's sort of my max authorization, so that I can sort of get the cheapest possible rate. So this resolution has 2 parts to it. One authorizes us to begin the process of sort of formally leasing out or beginning the process of starting to find leases for the flood site. We will then come back to you with a proposed agreement, proposed long-term lease for that site. And second, it authorizes district staff to enter into an agreement with JLL at a rate that'll be determined sort of as most favorable to us, but not to exceed the 6%. Any questions that I can answer on either part of that?
Through the chair, I have a question.
Conversation.
Thank you, President Latu. Mr. Eager, could you please clarify the potential rate of 6%? I know that potentially could be lower. 6% of what? First year leases, forever, for posterity, like what is that?
No, not forever. So I've been practicing this answer. So it's the assessed value of the site, which is a term that is used in real estate. It can be thought of, but is not the same as the sale value of the site. So we are not selling the site. I want to be just very clear about that. We are not considering offers to sell the site. We have never been considering offers to sell the site. We will not be selling the site. If we were to sell the site, that value is what it would be the percentage of. And so it's kind of like when you're buying or selling your home, you usually 3% seller, 3% buyer. Same idea here with a commercial real estate transaction. However, it's usually all on the seller. But I think, again, that's where sort of we might be able to negotiate this down slightly. But that rate is about 6% here. Does that make sense? So 6% of whatever the assessed value of the site would be, which will be a term in the contract. Does that make sense? It's not 6%. It's not like 6% of forever. It'll be either a one-time cost or a 2-time cost. One year, once the first month's rent comes in, something like that.
Got it. And then I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but just want to clarify. Once you do enter negotiations and come to like a deal, that will come back to the board for approval.
We can bring it back for approval. Technically, this authorizes me to just sign it, with the idea here being that as we get sort of later in the deal, we will sort of have some negotiations around exactly what the terms of that deal look like, right? So it might be, for example, in the district's best interest to pay some percentage up front and some percentage on the back, but it'll be hard to know until we sort of enter into that agreement with the buyer and the seller. And in those negotiations, I kind of have to have the authorization to like finalize the deal. Does that make sense? It's very similar to what we did with the bond issuance before. So I'm sort of like allowed to spend some amount, but not above that amount. Otherwise, that would have to go back to the board. But the idea is that I can sort of sign a contract that authorizes me below that amount, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. I'm just thinking that there might be parts of the deal outside of the right that might be important for the board to see. And so, so it makes it difficult to just say yes, that you can close the deal, right? Like I absolutely get negotiating and kind of doing like a, you know, an informal agreement around this is what we'd like to pursue, but then still pursuing like concrete agreement for the board that feels better. But I get your point. But because there's so many parts of, you know, pieces of a contract, it makes it difficult to say yes to this.
And this, and two just quick thoughts on that. One, just to clarify, I think Trustee Spillian, you understand this, but we're not talking obviously about the deal for the future lease of the site. That would obviously come back to the board. So it's whatever's going to get built there or how it's going to get structured, you know, that's going to get talked about here, I think, at length. This is just the agreement to sort of market the site, develop the marketing materials, and explore the market. We could bring sort of a more traditional lease. The idea here is the flexibility could allow us some savings down the road. It's kind of my thought is how do we save the district the most money here? The other thing we could do here, which I think is a possibility, is we could obviously bring any proposed piece to individual board members, individual trustees for feedback, or sort of like make sure we run it by you informally or formally, just to make sure that it's there. I wouldn't want to enter into a situation where the you know, we sort of reach the 1 yard line of the board for whatever reason. We could lose sort of some leverage here if the board sort of the threat of a board veto hung over a deal.
Makes sense. I think as long as the negotiation is just around that pay rate and doesn't include some kind of, you know, ownership in addition to the pay rate,
Oh,
you know,
God, no.
things like that. Exactly. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Other things like that could possibly enter the negotiation. So yeah.
I don't anticipate. Yeah.
I've seen bad deals
I point
in the
taken.
history. Yeah. Thank you.
I also just got a text from someone who was watching who said, "Oh, wow, we are really selling the flood site." I would like to reiterate to anybody watching in the community that we are not selling the flood site. We are leasing the flood site. We are not selling the flood site. It is a rental. We're viewing it purely as a rental. And this resolution purely authorizes us to lease the site, not sell. There's no intent to sell.
The board is not approving any selling of any school district land. That is not on the agenda. This is the consideration to explore the development or the lease to the flood site and kind of the parameters around there. Just to clarify, not selling, we don't sell. But do we have any other questions? Around the lease, this is just a general question that has been on my mind. Does the school district historically sign like a 99-year lease? Is it looking like a 50-year lease? Like, I just want to keep that in the back of my mind.
I believe the longest lease that I am aware of that the district has entered into is with the Boys and Girls Club, which I think was a 65-year lease for them to build their clubhouse. I believe that the longest agreement that this board has authorized in recent time would be the primary school, which I think was 10 years. The board, as I understand it, has had sort of an aversion, rightfully so, to longer term leases, which have not always, I think, to Trustee Sabomihin's point, benefited the district in the past. I don't know exactly what this site will look like. I do anticipate this being a longer term lease. I think it'll be difficult for someone to build a large building without getting some assurances that they'll, you know, be able to sort of use it on their end to pay back the costs of developing it over time. So this is a little bit different from some of our existing leases where we've leased some of our space, our buildings, for people to use over time with the intent that when our district enrollment comes back up, we'll be able to move back into those buildings. This is a little bit more like someone might build something, maybe homes, that the district would really only ever want to use for rental revenue property, not something else. So I can't speculate on the specifics, but I do anticipate this being sort of a longer term lease. Obviously, within the guidelines, the state does have some rules around how long we can issue or enter into agreements for. So it would be sort of in line with that.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments from the board, from the public?
I have one more question through the chair. I'm sorry, y'all.
No worries.
what happens if something were to happen and then we just changed our minds, like about developing on the land and leasing? What happens with this agreement? Yeah.
So two parts to this. The first is this notice to lease does not obligate us to lease the property. So if upon review of all the bids, the board says, don't like any of them, no problem. The second part of it around the broker is if we do not enter into an agreement or we decide not to lease or we pull out, there's no cost associated with that. We only pay when the deal is signed. And just to clarify, it's also a percentage of that deal, right? So if the deal is $0 or the deal is $10, we would only still pay that same percentage.
Makes sense. Thank you so much.
And the deal will likely be more than $10, just to clarify.
If there's no other comment, I will entertain a motion for item 9A.
Through the chair, there was nothing from I think I heard you say it, but then I interrupted with a question. I'm sorry, President Latu. There was no discussion from the community. No one had a question. Just want to make sure. Okay,
No.
sorry. Okay, thank you, President.
Just to double check and confirm, we're not selling any land. And I will, if there's public comment, this is your time. I see no hands. I see no further comment from the board. So I will entertain a motion to approve item 9A, the consideration to approve to lease the flood site.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 9A, resolution 2020-2021, lease to flood site or lease of a flood site.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Do we read the resolution now or after? Yes, we read the resolution now. Thank you.
Sorry, I had to get it up on the other computer. All right, through the chair, the resolution number 2020-2021-21, resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Ravenswood City School District declaring its intention to lease the site formerly known as the James Flood Elementary School located in Menlo Park, California, and directing staff and consultants to proceed with the lease process. Whereas the Ravenswood City School District owns a parcel of land, etc.
Roll call, please.
President Latu,
Aye.
Vice President Shibomihin,
Aye.
Trustee Alexander,
Aye.
Trustee Bloom.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. We will move to 9B, the consideration to accept the fiscal year 2019-2020 independent audit report.
Good evening again. While Gina's bringing up our auditors, Paul Pham, I realize I neglected to mention something that may be relevant just on this note. As mentioned, we're exploring leasing the flood site and 2120 Euclid. Later this month, we do plan on bringing the same resolution to form back to the board on the 27th for the 2120 Euclid site. As a reminder, that does not obligate us to do anything other than begin that process. And it also, just to be clear, also is not a property sale. This is just leasing land. It looks like Paul's here. I don't know that everyone's had the pleasure of meeting Paul. He is with the firm Shavin and Associates. They've been our auditors for quite some time now, Paul. I'm not actually sure how many years we're at, but quite some time. So he's here to present tonight the audit from 1920. This has been a bit delayed, as you know. I think there was a statewide exemption to give a little bit more time on the audit due to the pandemic and some of the difficulties of collecting this information, some of the sort of non-traditional pieces of information. And Paul has been working really diligently with our team, in particular, Mehdi Rizvi, to sort of pull together all the relevant information here. There are a couple of findings you're going to hear about tonight. You may have already seen them in the report here. I'm not sure everyone's sort of level of familiarity with audits. It's traditional to find a couple of findings. The language around them is perhaps slightly alarming, and I think we'll sort of, as Paul's walking through them, we do have a plan to address each of the major findings here. So Paul's done a great job of finding ways that I look at our district and saying, here's some things that we can do to improve. And we've already taken steps, I think, on all of them at this point. Over the last, Paul's been sort of, as he's finding things, we're working on addressing them. And a number of these, as you may remember from 1920, were sort of as we were transitioning a couple of positions, key positions in the business office. So some of these are also related to some of the challenges of that transition. Hopefully the board will approve the audit tonight. I think Paul's going to walk you through some of the findings as well as some of the overlying top line numbers. And then we will be filing this with the San Mateo County Superintendent of Schools, State Department of Education, the State Controller's Office, as well as a couple of other pieces here. I'll hand it over now to Paul, and you can take it away.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Will. Give me a second. Let me share my screen. Okay. Do you guys see that PowerPoint on your end?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, thank you, board and Gina for inviting me out to share with you the results of the June 30th, 2020 audit. I know it's a little bit far back. So what I want to do is I want to start out and just cover the auditing standards with you. So the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, they issue statements on auditing standards that we adhere to in our audit. And because you guys are local government, we also adhere to government auditing standards issued by the Governmental Accountability Office. And a lot of your state programs, they are guided by the Education Audit Appeals Panel. Each year they issue a audit guide that we use in our audit of your state programs. And because the district had expenditures of federal awards of over $750,000, uniform guidance is applicable, which handles the single audit for the district. And for this fiscal year 20, the child nutrition program was the program that was selected for audit. And in addition to that, we also did the Proposition 39 bond measure for the Measure H and the Measure S audit. And our audit process really, our audit objective and our responsibilities as auditors is really to provide reasonable assurance as opposed to absolute assurance that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. And the way we do that, we break our audit up into two phases. About halfway through the year, during the interim time, we're looking at your internal controls, we're performing some compliance procedures. And then at the end of the year, after you guys close your books, we perform some standard procedures and we wrap up our compliance audit as well. And so after that, we put together a report and we issue an opinion. Okay. So I'm going to go through the financials real quickly. You guys have a copy of it, and some of these numbers are a little ways back. So the one thing I wanted to point out here, this is the summary of the district's fund balances. And the major thing I wanted to point out is that overall, your total fund balance decreased by over $19 million. And you'll see that most of that is coming from your building fund. And that should be expected. That's basically the building fund spending down the cash for the capital projects, a lot of those projects you guys had. And then this schedule here is just your financial trends. It shows the general fund. And you can see the general fund is still fairly healthy. You guys have a good ending fund balance and reserve as well. This next statement as far as the government-wide statements, your statement of deposition, the one thing I wanted to point out here is you'll see your current assets dropped by almost $15.5 million. But to offset that, you'll see your capital assets going up by $14.8 million. That's basically you just spending cash and performing the capital projects you guys had. So it's converting a current asset into a long-term asset. That's all. That's basically what you're seeing there. And then as far as the audit results, we did this year, we did issue a modified opinion on the financial statements. And that was really related to the internal service fund. And the big part of that is just a lot of the transitions you guys have had over the years, having access to the files and whatnot. So we issued a material weakness on that one. Your capital assets, we had significant deficiencies that we had a finding on. And with respect to compliance, there was significant deficiencies in terms of the admin teacher ratio and your federal program, your federal title programs. So we've issued some corrective action plans and recommendations. And as Will was saying, the district's already started taking a lot of measures to correct these. And so this next coming year, we don't expect them to be findings anymore. The admin teacher ratio might take another review in terms of how you guys will approach that. But overall, the rest of these, I don't foresee them being a problem with in terms of you guys implementing our recommendations and having them cleared next year. So, and then lastly, I just wanted to thank Will and Eddie and the rest of your team. With the pandemic, doing a remote audit can take a lot of district resources. So we really appreciate all the hard work that they did to assist us this year. So it's truly appreciated. With that, I'll take whatever questions you might have.
I will open the floor. So do we have any questions or comment from board members?
The chair, I have a question about the admin to teacher ratio. Is the finding that we are admin top heavy? Or
Yeah.
is that what it's saying?
Yes, so there's a whole formula that you flow through based on full-time equivalent, and yes, you're over the threshold.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, I'm wondering if you could double down on that a bit, because I think it's a broad statement, and I think there's a little bit more color that's necessary to understand what that means. And yeah, maybe Superintendent Sudaria.
Well,
or
what I will share is we've made an investment to make sure that we had adequate support at our middle school. And so we've allocated resources to be able to have a vice principal at each grade level. And as you know, we are considering bringing vice principals at each of our two of our large elementary schools to provide additional support. And we're doing this in response to the needs of our school communities, which I think this process or this audit, this what would you call this? Audit. It is systematically biased in the sense that we are being penalized for wanting to have resources that would benefit our students in our school communities. But that's something that we're willing to pay in order to make sure we have the supports for our families. We do need to look at other means, like for example, coordinators and what have you. But at this point, we feel that we want to continue with the supports that we have in these positions.
I would also just add two quick things to that. One, it's not necessarily, when they say admin here, my first thought was it's like, oh, it's central office, it's people like me. That's not what this is. This is saying like principals, vice principals, administrators like that who have an administrative credential. I think if you think about a school like Los Robles, they're probably just structurally above the admin ratio because they have one principal, right? You need to have 10 teachers. I don't know that Alex has 10 teachers at that site. So, they would be in the penalty here just by themselves. And so for a small district with a number of schools, with sort of a reasonably large compliance burden because of all the amazing, say, federal programs we're getting, right? This is sort of a metric that I think, as Superintendent Staria pointed out, like I think systematically is unfair to us. And so to some extent, we have a plan to address some of the other ones. And this one, I think our plan is to write a check.
Through the chair, I'd also suggest contacting Senator Josh Becker, Assemblymember Mark Berman, because to me, this feels like a policy issue. And I do feel like it is a bit biased or inequitable, particularly in the case of smaller schools. So we can do some action there too. So I suggest everyone get on that boat. But thank you so much, Mr. Pham, for facilitating the audit for us.
Through the chair, I want to echo what Trustee Chabot just said. Same thing, is just, this is an equity piece that I think is unfairly penalizing districts with high minority students as well, because in our population, we need more adults to manage our students and their socio-emotional needs. So yeah, let's start a letter writing campaign or something.
Through the chair, I also had a question about this because when we look at the actual audit and the findings, I think that one thing is reported twice in two sections, right? It says section 4 and then it says it again. So I guess my question is that just a mistake in the misprint, or is that two different types of penalties that were paid?
Do you have a page reference? Are you referring to page 96 as opposed to page 94? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a repeat finding from the year before. So page 96 is in reference to the FY19 audit.
Okay, thank you.
We're hoping that this year we won't have any of those repeat findings. That won't happen hopefully again next year, Trustee Bloom.
I will open the floor to the public. See none. So we will move forward. I will entertain a motion to accept the fiscal year, the fiscal year 2019-2020 independent audit report.
I will make a motion to accept the 2019-2020 fiscal year audit report.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Awesome. Can we have roll call, please?
President Latu,
Aye.
Vice President Shibomaheen,
Aye.
Trustee Alexander,
Aye.
Trustee Bloom.
Aye.
And the motion to accept carries 4-0. We will continue to move along to item 10A, which is the consideration to approve resolution number 2020-2021-18, board member excuse absences. I read the resolution first, correct?
I've got it up to read it.
Awesome.
So resolution.
Gotta make the motion.
Oh,
Sorry.
thank you. Thank you for that correction. I will entertain a motion.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 10A.
Wonderful. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you.
Now,
Yes.
resolution 2020-2021-18, board member excused absences. Whereas the Ed Code authorizes each member of the governing board of Ravenswood City School District who actually attends all meetings, et cetera, et cetera. And the board finds that Anna Maria Polito is excused from attendance of the regular board meeting held on, it's not April 15th, so this needs to be changed. May, what is it today?
13.
13th, 2021.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Latu,
Aye.
Vice President Shibomaheen,
Aye.
Trustee Alexander,
Aye.
Trustee Bloom.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. We will move to item 10B, which is board policy, charter school renewal revisions presented to the board for action.
This is the policy that was pulled from the last board meeting. Notification. Are there any questions about this one? I think we got an understanding of it.
So we don't have to vote, we can just continue?
We need to vote on this one.
Yes, so thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve board policy 0420.42.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 10B.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Latu,
Aye.
Vice President Shabal
Aye.
Trustee Alexander,
Aye.
Trustee Bloom.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. We will move to item 10C, which is Administrative Regulation AR 5125.
This is just for first reading. There's no action.
Oh, awesome. So we will continue to 10D, which is the consideration to approve the schedule of the 2021-2022 board meetings. I will entertain a motion to approve item 10D.
Through the chair, I will make a motion to approve item 10D.
Awesome. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Latu,
Aye.
Vice President Shabal
Aye.
Trustee Alexander,
Aye.
Trustee Bloom.
Aye.
And the motion carries 4-0. I also would like to just make a note that the district is continuing to explore ways to bring our board meetings back in person, and we will continue to keep the public updated as we work through that. So we will move on to 10E, which is board report / communications.
Through the chair, I have a little report. Today, I had the honor of being shown around CCRMS by its wonderful principal, Amanda Kemp. I am so impressed with what I've seen, what I saw today at the school. Especially, I was there during the morning recreation time, where just the organization on the yard, the number of adults that were there supervising the children, how involved the children were in the various activities that they were doing, whether it was ukulele or ping pong or being on the field in 4 different quadrants, small groups just sitting around and talking. It was truly an amazing sight to see all those students engaged with each other, happy, smiling. You could tell because their eyes are smiling, because everybody was wearing a mask. And I finally, for the first time, got to see in those beautiful state-of-the-art science labs that were built. Amazing. So again, thank you, Ms. Kemp, for the tour. And I look forward to visiting the other schools in the coming week.
Wonderful. I've been taking my one-on-ones on campus, and there's such a joy just to see the kids interacting. Them being back on campus, you could just really tell that, you know, it was a great thing. I also was invited, and so was the Board of Trustees. And so I just wanted the community to know that the dedication and unveiling of the Belhaven Zoo mural and garden plaque of the Jose Ivan Ibarra Garden will be Saturday, June 5th, 2021 at 11 a.m. So I believe that we will continue to press that information to the public closer to the date, but I also wanted to make note of that. And so if there are no other reports, I will adjourn the Ravenswood City School District meeting. Our next board meeting will be held on May 27th, 2021 at 6:30. And I will adjourn the meeting at 8:42. Have a wonderful night. Thank you for trucking along with us, and thank you to staff for all your work, especially around a lot of the presentations. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you, trustees. Thank you, team.
Thank you. Bye.